Good evening and welcome to today's meeting of the Community and Social Wellbeing Committee. Welcome to everybody who's on the call, which is a good number of people, always great to see. I'm just going to go through the first 3 items of the agenda, hopefully quite rapidly. So first of all, Steve, do we have any apologies for this evening's meeting?
Yeah, we've had apologies from Gareth Ford. He is a meeting of his governor's body meeting, so he can't attend tonight.
Okay, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest for this evening's meeting? No, not seeing any. Sarah, you're on mute.
Personal one, my son's in the meeting, Fred Keaton, just in case you didn't know, because he's interested in basketball. I thought I'd mention it. It's personal rather than prejudicial.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. And everybody had a chance, that is, committee members have had a chance to look at the minutes of the meeting held in March. Is somebody willing to propose them as an accurate record of our meeting last month? Sarah, yeah, seconded. I don't see a seconder. Martin, were you here? Otherwise I'll second the mic. Oh, Pam, sorry, I didn't see your hand. It wasn't high enough. Okay, excellent. Unless there's any issues, I will move on then. Okay, so I'm going to suspend standing order, sorry, to open up to members of the public who've joined us this evening for 15 minutes. So as I said, if you wish to speak at this point, then please just put your camera on and give us a wave, and I'll bring you in. Okay. Colin Gill, is it?
Yes, hello. I'm sorry, I didn't want to jump in first, just to try and work out how the format should be delivered. But if no one else is going first, I'll happily start. So
yeah, go ahead.
So I work for a local organization called the CAE, and part of my role as caseworker on the community transport project is to engage with as many people from the various Black and ethnic minority groups in Swansea to help them with a variety of things. Usually it's things like getting into employment or helping them with their finances. But because of my interest in sport, I'm a 20-year history in sports coaching. I have recently made contact, reconnected with Fred Keaton, who was mentioned earlier, who's also present here today, on the basketball courts at Victoria Park by the seafront. And myself, Fred, and the group of young basketball men and women that frequent that court felt that it would be fantastic if there was a court similar to that in Langland Bay or around that area. Because we know the area quite well, we know that there are various tennis courts not in use over in that site. And we were hoping that the council would consider allowing us to trial an event over this spring and summer when restrictions permit such things to happen, so that we can help encourage young people from across the city to come to the event, learn some basic skills, link in with other young people from different backgrounds, so it will be like a multicultural diversity event to try and encourage people to break down barriers and build some social cohesion. And when they're down there, no doubt they'll jump in the water and enjoy the beach that's there. So that was our initial idea. And from our initial idea, Fred got a couple contacts, and I emailed it across. And I'm very grateful that you guys have allowed us to sit in on the meeting, just to hear how things progress.
Okay, thanks, Colin. That's really helpful to understand. Thanks for being in touch. I'm just reading the comment here in the chat, which says it would be really useful to hear what MCC have to say in regards to the community agenda points, tennis courts, basketball, etc., prior to public questions, as it may open up the conversation, prompt further questions. Yeah, I completely take the point. At this point, I think it's just helpful to understand why people are here and which agenda points it is that they're most interested in. So we'll carry on, and then you will certainly hear what different councillors have got to say as we move through the agenda. Is there anybody else who wanted to just kind of give us any? Oh yeah, Fred, I see you're waving now. You're also on mute though before you launch in.
My bad. So yeah, I'm Fred, which Colin mentioned. I just want to bring up as well, there's a gentleman that should be here today, but he's actually running a community football session at the moment down Mumbles, called Eddie, who's currently actually started the first basketball team in Gower, called the Gower Giants, who I believe some of the parents are in the meeting today as well. So hopefully this gives them some opportunity to speak as well. But yeah, I think what this shows is that there is a need in the actual area of Mumbles and Newton, Mayles, West Cross. The basketball is in fact growing and kids are interested. Creating this basketball courts down Langland instead of the tennis courts would probably encourage a lot more kids to be active rather than just the 2 to 4 who can play on a tennis court right now. Yeah, it's there's definitely a need for basketball in the area. I've just recently started at Bishopston Comprehensive School as a TA. I know one of my housemates, who's also working with me as well, has been reaching out to the children about potentially starting a basketball club there. And there's been a lot of interest within the school. So once again, since a lot of the pupils in Bishopston are from Newton, West Cross, Mumbles, and within Gower as well, naturally, it's showing more of an interest. I think it'd be a real shame to miss out this opportunity.
Okay, thanks, Fred.
Right.
And I saw a thumbs up from Roz there as well. It's funny that doing this on Zoom, we would probably be able to see each other a bit better if we were in the room. But anyway, thanks for joining us with the technology. Are there anybody else who wanted to speak before we move through the agenda? I can't see any hands. So what we'll do is we'll reinstate, if that's the right phrase, standing orders. So from this point on, it would just be members of the committee that are able to speak. And we have got 2 co-opted members of this committee, which are Jason Williams and Ian Thomas as well, who I'm sure will be specifically joining us for the update on the skate park, which is the next agenda item. Is that okay, Steve? We're unsuspended or whatever the word is.
Yeah, that's fine.
Fab. Okay, so agenda item 4 then, update on the skate park. As usual, I'll come over to you, Pam, if you're hearing us okay on that. But you're also on mute. Give it a minute.
Pam, you're on mute.
Shall I go over to Sarah? I don't think there's a huge amount to update on the skate park at the moment, other than we're progressing at pace with the lottery application for funding towards the skate park. And we're on the second stage of that, so we hope to hear relatively soon. Pam, I think we can hear you now.
Sorry, I checked with Carrie this afternoon. There's still information she's waiting for from Maverick before she can send off the grant application. The problem is...
Oh no, we lost you.
For us, we just on hold. We can't do anything because we're going for a grant application instead of paying for ourselves. If we paid for it ourselves, they could have started building weeks ago. But because we're in a grant application situation, we can't go forward until they've filled us in. So we've missed the boat on that. I don't know when we'll be able to start again.
Oh, great.
Okay, thanks, Pam. I suppose the good side of that is that hopefully we'll have some help towards the funding for the skate park, which means it won't all be coming out of the precept, which is, you know, always exploring these opportunities to bring in income from elsewhere. But it does mean that there's a delay. So it's a balancing act, isn't it? Okay, I think that's probably all there is to say on the skate park at the moment. So I'll move on to an update on Underhill. Martin, I think this is also quite a brief update, but if there's anything you wanted to bring up.
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can with an echo. Having all the technical difficulties today. Try again.
Can you hear me now?
With a marginally less of an echo.
Yeah, we just wait. We're just waiting for the legal niceties to be finalized. And then when we're waiting for that, hopefully we've got a meeting on Friday. Hold on a second. Is that better?
Yes, that's great.
Yeah. It's so difficult doing it on two devices. Anyway, we're having a meeting on Friday to catch up. We've had a bit of a hiatus waiting for the technical, for the legal documents to be I's dotted, T's crossed. But as soon as we're in that position, we're hopefully going to be able to proceed with the loan application. But as I sort of said, we've got a meeting on Friday. I understand, but I haven't seen it as yet because I was hoping that I would have seen it by now, that we would have a document from MCA outlining their position in relation to the legal agreement, but I haven't seen that as yet. So that's just bringing everybody up to date on that. I don't know if Steve wants to add anything on that, whether you've had any more updates on that.
I had something from our solicitor late this afternoon saying he had received something.
Right,
so I'll ask him tomorrow to let us know.
That's what I mean. That's the document I'm hoping to see. So, we'll be in a better position when we've seen that.
Great stuff. Okay, so yeah, meetings resume on Friday.
Yeah.
Push that project forward. Okay, right. So item number 6 is the Langland Bay tennis courts, specifically talking about courts 1 and 2. So these are the ones that have already been refurbished. I just wanted to bring committee up to speed on the lines repainting. So you remember that when they were refurbished, it was considered that it would be better to wait until the spring to do the lines so that they sort of, I think the word is cured better. And it is now spring. So Steve has chased up this week, and I understand that they're hoping to paint the lines, weather permitting, starting, is it the 28th, Steve, of April?
That's correct, yeah.
So that will involve closing the courts for a few days, but obviously the facilities there will then be much easier to use. The other point I wanted to bring up under this agenda item is that I have had a couple of residents contact me concerned that the courts are not, well, various issues really with use of the courts. One is that they are sometimes just completely kind of held, I suppose, by coaching happening down there, which means that if you turn up as a resident, wanting to just play with a mate, then you can't, because the coaches have kind of been down there hogging them since 7 AM. I've also had people report that sometimes there's kind of groups of people sitting on the courts and not using them for tennis, but just kind of, again, hogging the space. We have talked various times in this committee about whether we want to implement some sort of gate system on the courts. This would enable people to book. They can book for free, particularly residents could book for free, but it would just mean that when you get down there, the court is going to be available for you, and you would have some sort of code sent to you that means you could get in through the gate system. There were some concerns about that as a possibility. So Steve has recently recirculated the presentation that we had from Tennis Wales to see if anybody had any questions they wanted to raise. And what I really want to do this evening is, if there are any questions from committee members, for us to get together a short list of questions that we could perhaps send to Tennis Wales ahead of any future presentation from them, so that they can come really prepared with the answers. So I hope you've all seen the email from Steve, and if there are any questions that you wanted to bring up, now is your opportunity. I've got a couple, but I will let members go first. Pam.
Just the concern that you're trying to book with a mobile phone from Langland Tennis Court and can't get any reception, which is quite common. How will they accommodate that?
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Is it definitely going to be possible to book on the spot? Will the system basically improve mobile reception, or will it involve Wi-Fi, or what, basically? Were there any other questions, Sarah? You're on mute.
Of course I am. I'm going to get a mug with "I'm on mute" on it. Yeah, you know my feelings on them being gated. It just feels like it's another thing to stop people using free facilities that they've already paid for, but they're taxes. But as the conversation went with us earlier, I think there is a way around it. If it is gated and it's free and it's open to booking, but more to that, if it's only locked for certain days, so people can only book the actual courts on certain days, and the rest of the time it's open and free for people to come and go. I think that might be the best halfway house. That means it will allow coaches, or if Colin wanted to do something, he can say, well, I'm booking it for that time, and be sure when he goes down there, he's got it, or the same with the tennis players. And other times it's free when people wander past to go, oh, I'll shoot some hoops or play some tennis. I think that's about the best way we can go about it.
So the question there, Sarah, is that possible, basically? Is it possible to just leave the gate open?
Exactly. That was the question I was coming to.
Yeah, okay, great. The question I had was around the kind of usage data that this would provide. So, like, in what format would that come? Are we able to basically, understand a bit more about who is using the courts and when through the gate system? Any other questions? Linda, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know how, we seem to be making a lot of heavy weather out of this. I play archery and I have to book a space to do the archery, and there's just a contact detail and I just book it. So is there somebody going to be in charge of this? Is it going to be, the Mums Community Council, or is it going to be somebody else at tennis? Just can you fill me in there with that?
So that is actually one of the things that we would need to decide. So Tennis Wales can install the gate system and set it all up for us, and then Mumbles Community Council can run it. That's one option. And we would need to consider that, that might involve some of Steve's time or some of Paul's time as the administrator. Or Tennis Wales did present an option for them, like basically maintaining the courts, and we would pay them to do that, but they would look after everything, the gate system, the maintenance of the courts. They would, could run some events down there and things as well.
Okay.
Okay, so Steve, I think I've seen today that there is now a new date with Tennis Wales to discuss all this, is that right?
Yeah, he suggested the 6th of May, which I didn't click, but that's perhaps not the best day. I was going to check with everyone what they thought, but
I think there might be a good number of committee members who might be otherwise unavailable that day. So it might be worth, I think, looking at another date, Steve. Sorry, I know it's been a hassle to get that date.
Okay, yeah, I'll speak to him tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think the point that is probably brought to the fore with this whole debate or question is that we've got now, and this will be relevant for the next couple of agenda items as well, we've got a sort of divide between the ad hoc casual players who wander down to our sports facilities and have a game of whatever it might be, and then organised coach sport. And with tennis, for example, we've potentially got a bit of a challenge on our hands in that the organised coached tennis is minimising the opportunities for your ad hoc casual players to go down. So that's kind of a balance that we need to consider. So what I would like to do is essentially take the next 3 agenda points, 7, 8 and 9 together, because I think they are all connected. So those are Court 3 at Langland, basketball and netball provision, which is on the agenda because, as well as people attending this evening, we've had lots and lots of emails about basketball and netball provision. and then also the consultation around the Mumbles tennis courts and the Bowls Pavilion. So on court 3 then, at the moment we have got agreement to lease court 3. We have not yet reached a decision on what we're doing with it. And I think it's probably worth saying that we haven't really done, certainly since I've been a councillor in the last few years, a proper community consultation on what residents would like on court 3. And there are lots and lots of views on what should be on court 3. In terms of basketball, netball question, this has come to the fore from my understanding, partly because of COVID and the limits on the use of indoor space. So we're now talking about the need for outdoor space as sort of an immediate concern, because those sports are, you know, the normal indoor facilities that people have been using, that, you know, local residents have been using, are not available at the moment. So one option would be to consider basketball and netball provision on court 3, potentially at the moment as a kind of temporary solution, and for it to be just the lines painted and movable hoops. With that option, we could also consider painting the lines of tennis so that all 3 could be played on that court. That is one possible solution. If we considered that as a temporary option, it would also help us with a community consultation, in the sense that we would be able to see what was being used by who and when and all of those sorts of things. So some of the questions around, you know, what is in demand, we'd be able to see it. So that's just an idea that I'm putting out there. I think I will open up now to any other councillors that had any thoughts. I know a number of people have had emails about this. So yeah, who wanted to come in next really? Sarah? Oh.
On mute. Yeah, just to say, yeah, I've been inundated this week. I think it's safe to say. Thank you, Steve, for passing them all on, the emails. Lovely to hear people who want their children to catch some physical activity, and I think it's a good way to use that court and see if there is a real need for basketball and netball down there. If it isn't, it'll be blatantly obvious, and then we'll go back to the drawing board and do whatever. But in the meantime, let's see what happens this summer and get it sorted out. And then that means during the pandemic, the kids get to play outside in the fresh air.
Thanks, Sarah. Pam?
In the same way that the other councillors put out a general canvas to Mumbles Langland Tennis Club to see what they wanted to do with the courts, some of us put out an open consultation to anybody who wanted to join in. And I had no idea how much netball is played or not being played. People begging for a court because they can't play indoors at the moment. And I know Johnson said last night, the 3rd wave of COVID is coming. There are play netball are very much desperate to get somewhere to play.
I think we might have lost you, Pam.
On the list, up on this page.
I think we might have just missed the last bit there, Pam.
Steve has a printout of all the different sports that we've invested in. Could he put that up for everybody to see?
Sorry, where was this list?
I think it's the email I sent just before the meeting started, Steve. So hopefully it's right at the top of your inbox.
Oh, right, okay. There's the moment.
Just while you're looking for that, Steve, one of the other bits of information to consider is, of course, we've known there's demand for basketball for the ad hoc kind of play that I was talking about for some time, and that's why there's basketball provision in this year's budget. So there's £22,500 in this year's budget for basketball provision. When I was scoping that I had understood that that sort of budget would be enough for half a court. And I'm talking about proper surfacing, fencing, hoop.
There it is.
But in terms of just painting lines and putting temporary hoops up, the cost would obviously be significantly less. So back over to you, Pam, to talk.
Okay, I wanted to know what we spent on other sports. On Underhill, we're paying 1.3+ million, and we know that's basically football and rugby, which is fantastic, and it's mostly for men. And there are some women's teams that I know. We spent over 300,000 on the skate park, which with the 3 different sections, we hope will bring more girls in at the younger age, and they skate as well. Tennis course, 89,000, Santander bikes, 13,000 too. Just to say, we are investing in so many other sports. We're doing nothing for the girls and the women who want to play netball. And they are really asking for this. And what they've said is they need somewhere for the teams to train, and they need somewhere for the teams to play. And women have said they coach basketball teams. They'll go down to the courts, they'll do it properly. And I think we've got to, as MCC, we've got to take a wide perspective on who we fund. And I think this is a section of the sports that has been completely left out. We've got to go wide. We've got to share out the money carefully, and we've got to share it out equally. Another thing that hasn't been brought up is we're probably not going to be able to get onto the courts to even know about Court 4 for about 2.5 years when all the building's finished. We won't know what's happening on the Mumbles tennis courts, where they're extending the prom probably and putting in flood defences for the next 3 to 4 years. So I don't see why we shouldn't put a netball and basketball court on there. The height of the net apparently is the same. So they can give them a temporary court with COVID-3 coming for the next couple of years. And then at the end of that period, when all the courts are up for grabs and we know what's happening in Mumbles, we can then perhaps say, right, we'll turn Langland over completely for tennis, we'll turn Mumbles over completely for basketball and netball. But I don't think it's fair to say to the women and the netball players, oh, we'll hang on for 3 years and then we might have a court for you. What we are giving everybody, if we give them this court now, then I think that's only fair. You won tournaments of tennis without 4 courts, and we don't have 4 courts yet. Whether we have some in Mumble, we've got to plan long term, and I think there's a big case for turning 1 court over to netball and basketball. And that's about it. Oh, I went down there last night to look at my book, and all 4 courts, there were lads on it, about 35 lads playing football in 4 different courts. And I went up to speak to them and talk to them and said, what would you like to see on these courts? They all said basketball. Somebody said skate park ramp, and I said, well, hang on, we spent 300,000 on that. And he said, well, fair enough. But they're all asking for basketball. And they're all quite willing to go on a gated system. They said, yes, we're used to that, that's fine. So, and another lady spoke to me today about this, and she's of my generation, not yours. And she said, what's happening with the courts? Told her there was a meeting tonight, and she said, you have to give these people somewhere to go. They're all over the 2 courts of the brand new ones and the nets that we put up now. You've got to give these young people somewhere to go. And she's out of that generation, but recognises that we have a duty to try and help these people along. And I think in the meantime, we can monitor how the courts are being used, that in 2 years' time, we know exactly what we're going to spend huge amounts of money on. I think that covers it.
Thanks, Pam. Yeah, I share the concern about potential damage to the courts that we've already refurbished, because there are still people for whom the facilities are not meeting their needs, and therefore the facilities that we have got are being used for, you know, with a football or whatever, which is just going to damage the investment that we put into tennis, which would be such a shame. So the other figure that was just at the very bottom of that little email there, for us to consider, is that we're into a new financial year, obviously, which is why we've got this 22,500 that's been put aside for basketball. In the last financial year, our small and medium grants budget was underspent by about 18,000. There's still a little bit of tidying up to do with March's grants not having gone out yet, but it'll be about that amount. So, you know, without kind of inflicting any damage on any other budgets, there's you know, that pot of money there, which should be plenty for a temporary court. So just to be clear, I suppose we're not I'm not anyway necessarily suggesting that we spend loads and loads of money at this stage, and it would be something that, you know, we have to be realistic about how long it's going to last, because, you know, people do get upset when they see that things have started to get damaged, but it would be something that would give us a temporary balance, I suppose, and it would give us some information about what is being used by who. Does anybody else from the committee want to speak? So in terms of next steps,
I forgot something. The women's football team from Underhill are also saying that they are using courts 5 and 6 to practice. And I talked to Martin about this, and he said the all weather pitch isn't going to be.
I think that was
Can't afford it. Everybody we just got to choose, I think. And I think netball and basketball are. There's been an avalanche from them saying, please, we need an outdoor space, especially if there's going to be another run of COVID. Finished.
okay. Sarah? And then
Well, the football, surely they can use Underhill, because that's why we've spent so much money there. That's the football centre. I mean, the last thing we need is for it to, we've paid so much towards football and rugby. I think we've done enough on that. The last thing we need is a mugger stuck down Langland and people just playing football down there, you know.
Playing mugger.
yeah. Okay. Right. So I just want to bring this to like what the next steps would be. We have agreement to lease Court 3 from Swansea Council on the basis that it is a tennis facility. So that is a small hurdle that we will need to overcome. So we would need to request an amendment on that agreement to lease. It's not impossible, but it's a consideration. Sarah?
Yeah, just a point on that. I was at that meeting. It was just the community councillors around the table who outvoted us and said they wanted it to remain tennis court. This isn't something that Swansea Council is particularly inured to. In fact, I think you'd find they'd want us to put something different down there.
Yeah. So it's just a step that we need to consider. So I think the proposal to full council would be for us to, in the short to medium term, paint the lines for basketball, netball and tennis on Court 3, and for us to monitor usage. What does that sound like as a recommendation? Does that?
Hi, Rebecca. I'm sorry to interrupt. I've just got in from running one of the sports clubs.
Is it Eddie? Sorry.
Yes, it is.
Just to say, so we're in session at the minute where it's just councillors, just committee members are able to speak. My apologies.
Ah, sorry. I'm sorry. I've no experience on these types
No,
of things.
it's okay. I ran through a few things, but I was aware you were going to be a bit late. But welcome anyway, and thank you for all of the information that you've sent various people. It's been really, really helpful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So just to go back to that recommendation then, thoughts from committee members?
Basketball and
Didn't catch that.
if you're going to go along the lines that we have some days with free sports, I don't know how it works. Can you take one down and put one up? So one's a tennis.
Yeah, so I think I'm getting the question. It's to do with how easy is it to switch from basketball to tennis as an example. That is a question I don't know.
But I would say just painted basketball and netball. I'd say just painted basketball and netball.
Sarah?
Hi. Yeah, no, I'm just saying that I'm just sort of carrying on with that with Pam. I was going to ask the question, if you've got someone to paint the council person, whoever you're paying to do the tennis lines, can you ask them to do the netball, the basketball stroke netball lines the same time? If you want, I'm sure one of these guys here would turn up on the day to make sure they were done properly. But if you could get them to do them at the same time, that would be an absolute blessing.
It would be good. I'm conscious that there is only a week between now and that happening, and we've got to get a decision through full council.
That's a pity.
Yeah, it is. Unless they will be willing to do it free, and then we might not have to worry so much about it, but I think that's unlikely.
2 for 3. We could tell them it's a special deal.
And I can see what you're saying, Pam, about how, you know, how easy is it going to be to transition between a hoop sport and a tennis style sport. My only concern is that there is also strength of feeling about tennis in the area, and if we're painting lines, why would we not just paint the lines? And then if it came to a point of people wanting to book it for tennis, we could sort of cross that bridge when we come to it. Sorry, Linda, I haven't seen it. I've seen your hand now.
I agree with you. I think to have all the lines there, see what's used most.
Yeah.
Thinking back,
Hang on, Pam.
thinking back to when I played tennis, we had a hut at London when I was a teenager and through school, and I was down there all the time playing tennis. And I know we always had to book. There was somebody on duty, and we always had to book. There was never going on a court. We were always booking. But having said that, I know that's gone now. We've finished that discussion. But I agree with you. I think paint all the lines for all the sports and see what is used most. That's what I would say.
Could I come back with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps that's the way forward. We paint basketball lines and netball lines in all the courts, as well as tennis, and make them all sort of muggers for that. That might be a way around it. And that way, if there's more than one team playing basketball or netball, they can get on with it. And if there's more than 3 or 4 people playing tennis, they can play them as well. Just a thought. I know it cost us a fortune in basketball hoops, but...
Martin, you've been very quiet on this question. Is there anything you want to say?
No, not really. It's that let the conversation go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to put forward the recommendation that we move to paint all 3 lines on court 3, and that we do that as quickly as possible. So I'm literally talking about a quick and dirty solution at this point, because we know that there are teams out there that would normally be in indoor facilities and can't be specifically because of COVID. So that's why I'm thinking it's you know, as I call it, quick and dirty. And that we use this time to also be doing our proper community consultation on court 3. So that is what I'm going to put forward as a recommendation. You can vote against it if you like, but that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
no problem.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, as Sarah said, at the moment our lease is for tennis courts only. Should we not include in that motion that we ask Swansea permission to do this?
Yeah, yes, please do include that. That's an important step.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So that's, I hope, covered definitely point 7 and 8 of the agenda. Point 9, the reason I included it is because, of course, that is another sports facility for us to consider. So just to bring us up to speed, we are still awaiting the second meeting. Oh, it's been set now, hasn't it? The second meeting of the group that's consultation.
It has, yeah.
Yeah.
28.
I can't make that.
But so the suggestion is that the sort of active members, if you like, are Martin, Pam, and Will, and then Steve and Claire as our officers, and that anybody else, and I will definitely be doing this, can join as an observer. And if there's any questions or any information that you want to feed in, use one of those 3 councillors. So I'll be texting you, Martin, as things are going on. So that's to move the Mumbles Tennis and Bowls Pavilion consultation forward. The only thing I would kind of remind people is that, we're not expecting a decision from Swansea Council on what they're doing with that space in the short term. Like, it's going to be a long-term thing. At that point, it may well be that we've got another sports facility that we can look to refurb, and we'll have all of this extra information about what people want on those courts. So although we are moving forward really quickly so that we've got a clear position, we've done our consultation on what our residents want to see happen there. It's not going to happen overnight, just to remind people. But that consultation with our lane has also been restricted now just to the Mumbles tennis, because we were seeing a bit of mission creep. Is that okay with everyone? Is that pen waving to say something, Sarah, or was it just waving?
Yeah, no, it was waving. It was waving thoughtfully. I can't make the 28th. I was involved in the first one. I would have liked to have been involved in the second. Apologies, it's my wedding anniversary and my mother-in-law's coming down for some strange reason. Okay.
I can pick that up.
Yeah, okay. Pam will be there, Martin will be there, Will, who's not on the call, will be there. Okay, righty-ho, 10 to 7. I will move us on to agenda point 10. Just to say, if you were here because you were particularly interested in basketball and netball, as I know many of you were, we will not be offended if you now leave. Yeah, if you want to stay, you're very welcome, but if not, then we understand. Thank you ever so much for joining us. So number 10, repair to benches on seafront and a new bench. So there's additional documents in the folder, I think. Let me just find those. Can I just ask, Steve, has this already been discussed by Environmental Committee as the holder of the street furniture budget?
It hasn't. It's one of those things that it falls between the two stalls, really, because it's not an environmental. The way that committee is going is very much biodiversity, carbon reduction, and it doesn't really, benches like this don't really sit on it. So I wasn't sure where to put it, really.
Okay.
And I was glad when I sent you the agenda, you didn't say take it off. So I'm riding my luck here.
Well, always happy to discuss these things. So there's two benches in particular, aren't there? There's the one that we all know. Oh no, actually, this is a third bench. Basically, we know that there are benches that are in desperate need of repair. Maddie was doing a bit of an audit of the street furniture about 4 months ago, I think.
Yeah, she only got as far as doing the bins, because obviously she's doing the recycling bins. So
right. I think what this needs is for somebody to, perhaps a team, to take a walk with a little map and just mark where all the ones that need repairing are. Pam?
The way we've done this in the past is if it's your walk, councillors for Oystermouth will do Oystermouth, Newton do Newton, Mayors will do Mayors, so then we don't report back.
Okay. Martin?
Yeah, this is just sort of something I've been thinking about quite a bit recently, to be honest, because that letter that we had, I very much agree, and this is something I've thought about for some time, to be honest. It's definitely a lack of benches in Underhill Park, and particularly for people with any sort of mobility problems, which that couple seem to have. Saying that, they're obviously very fit to be in their 80s, to be walking down to the coastal park. But, just this whole sort of thing about having some sort of audit about where we put benches. There's somebody who's got mobility problems myself, okay, they're very slight mobility problems, but, having a bench available when I encounter my mobility problems is very important, to be honest. And this whole sort of thing that was made in that letter there about at the bottom of that hill, I thought that was a very good point, to be honest, because, you need to sit down before you manage the hill. I've also noticed that there's other benches on top of the ones that have been highlighted there. I came across one on Mumbles Hill the other day. Well, of course, that's in a sort of, there's a conservation area up there, so I'm not really sure who's responsible for that. So the point that you're making there, Rebecca, but of course there's a resource issue about maybe having some sort of audit of our benches and where it would be useful to have them. And as I sort of said, it might be useful to have some sort of thought as well about, because my feeling is, as they sort of said with Underhill Park, there's almost like we encounter deserts of benches, which particularly for people with any sort of mobility problems could be a major issue.
Thanks, Martin. I completely agree. Having just been 9 months pregnant,
Exactly.
there are more than one reason why you might need a bench.
Exactly.
So yeah. So I'm just looking at, I've got this photo up in front of me of this one that's in a terrible state. There's one exactly like it in what I call Fairwood Park. Some people call Nails Park in West Cross.
Yeah.
That's the photo I'm looking at, yes. I wonder whether we could almost do like a RAG rating. So that stands for red, amber, green. So to me, that's like a red, desperately needs some attention. There might be some that are not in the best of nick, for us to sort of look at a little bit further down the line, and then the ones that we know are good, stick as a green. And then, yeah, if we kind of had a map where they all are, then that would hopefully show us where they're not as well. I guess I'm conscious that, I don't want to just sound like we're kicking the can down the road on this, but I do feel quite strongly that we probably just ought to look at it in the round. I don't know what other people think. It is a resourcing issue. Is it something that we could talk about riding your luck here, Steve? Is it something that we could ask the new Maddie to do when they are in as a introduction to the area?
Yeah, it could be. Why not?
Could I just come back in again? I think, to be honest, when it comes to, say, that one on the seafront there by Oyster Wharf, the thing is we've got a precedent there. There's a bench there. That bench needs repairing. It not only needs repairing. I think the point that somebody's made is it's a bit of a danger the way that it is at the moment. So maybe benches like that, we need to sort of take a bit of a precedent in just getting those repaired. But then there needs to be another body of work to be done with a bit of an audit of bench provision. And also, as I sort of said, I'm not 100% sure, as I sort of said, with the benches up on Mumbles Hill, are we responsible for those? Steve, do you know?
Yeah, Martin, I was literally going to make a point of information, because just to make it absolutely clear, we're not responsible for any benches. They're all the responsibility of Swansea Council. But obviously, it's always the same problem. They have limited funds, and if we don't pay for these things to be repaired, we will.
Yeah. Because the thing is, a lot of the benches we have paid for them, haven't we? It says on them, Mumbles Community Council.
Yeah, they become Swansea's property. We've contributed towards them.
Okay.
They're insured by and part of Swansea Council's property, not ours.
I think Linda wants to speak.
Yeah, Linda?
Yeah, this business of benches, it seems to me as if there's a glut of benches in some places, and as Neil said, that where they really are needed, there aren't enough benches. I mean, there are so many benches in Klein Gardens, and I've just had the phone call yesterday. Could I pay for another 2 benches in Klein Gardens? Because they are wanting them when they're having their coffee and so on. And you just got this, and then we've had benches which have been provided for people in memorial, and the children are crying because they said that it's like walking around a cemetery, because that's all they're seeing is memorials and flowers stuck on benches. So there has to be some sense somehow or other. Neil says that there are benches needed in other places other than Klein Gardens. So yeah, sort it out.
Thank you, Colin. I am very fast reading your message there. I'm sure when we come to be looking at moving things forward, we will be really interested to speak to members of the community that have expertise. So thanks for joining us. Thank you, Linda, for that point. So I think what we're suggesting is that we identify the benches like the one in that picture that are in such a state that they are urgently in need of repair. And I guess we ask Swansea Council what it costs to get them repaired. And then we find the budget, because at the moment we've got nothing earmarked for bench repairs in this committee anyway.
Mm.
All right.
Yeah, good point. Linda, you moved it.
Still muted. No, I can't see you.
Cost £500 to buy a bench because that's what I was asked for, but I don't know how much it costs to repair a bench. But I would say that the one that you've just shown us on screen looks to me as if it should be thrown away and a new bench should be provided.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Sarah?
Yeah, I was just about to make the same point. Gareth and I, when we first became community councillors, made a walk around all these different benches, and we were told they were the council's, and we asked, I think Steve was supposed to contact them, didn't you, Steve? And we got nowhere. I think we're just going to have to ask them to take them away and replace them with new benches, because those benches are not repairable.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. The question remains where we think we're finding this budget from. Steve, let's work out how many benches it is, because it isn't just that one that's in that sort of state. I've definitely got one in my ward. So maybe let's, can we put something out to councillors to say, sorry, I've got sun in my eyes, to say, if you're aware of benches in the areas you represent that are in a dreadful state, and we can send that picture as an example, can you, let us know? I'm hoping it's going to be a handful, and then find out from Swansea Council how much it's going to cost. And then can we just double check with environmental that they don't have budget, please?
Yeah.
Does that sound like a sensible approach?
Are we going to make a recommendation that to full council that they be, so this is done between now and full council, if you sort of mean, so the photos come in and then this committee has recommended these are repaired, and I'll speak to you and Paul about what budget we can use. Does that make sense?
Yeah. People happy with that?
Yeah.
I think they need replacing rather than repairing. That's the problem with some of them.
We'll say repair / replace, not possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the ones that are urgent. And then I'm going to, do we need to recommend to full council if we just want the new Maddie to carry out a piece of work? Or can we just put that on his or her to-do list?
No, that's fine. We can do that without full council saying that, yeah.
Okay, great. So then we're going to ask the new environmental engagement officer to undertake a bench audit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Next item on the agenda, get rid of this awful photo, is grant request from Galady Housing and Support. So many people will know of this organisation as the Community Fridge. They recently ran an event in West Cross that some people attended, I think, and they are requesting £996.92 towards the Community Fridge scheme in the area. Has everyone had a chance to have a look at the application?
No.
We'll just whiz through what they're asking for. Right, so they are wanting to run, sorry. So they're wanting to run future events like the one that they ran in February. Which basically, for people who are not familiar, the Community Fridge takes food that is otherwise going to waste. So supermarket surplus, for example, and they redistribute it. And it's not a food bank. I should reinforce that. I had some food from them at the last event. It's a kind of mixed benefit of helping people who might be struggling, but also minimising waste. So anybody is welcome to attend. In terms of the funding that they are asking for, am I looking at the wrong document, Steve? Have they given us a breakdown of what it is that they are wanting the money for? Oh yeah, sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. So it's basically to cover some staff time, some volunteer travel expenses, PPE, because so that they can run them in the COVID times, and what they called management charges. I'm not sure what that is. There we are. Are we willing to recommend this to full council?
Okay.
Got a nod from Sarah. I have to say the event in February was excellent, and really, wide-reaching in terms of beneficiaries.
Can you tell me a bit more about the event, please? Because I'm a bit out of the loop here.
Yeah. So actually, it was one of those things where I think until I had gone, I didn't really understand what it was either. So basically, for this event that I went to in February, they took over West Cross Community Centre, the hall there, and they essentially had, because of COVID, they did it as a long line of tables with different foodstuffs in their categories. So it started with pasta and rice, tinned goods, soup, beans, peas, those sorts of things. All supermarket surplus this was, so it was food that a supermarket would have just thrown away because they weren't going to be able to sell it because they'd over ordered or whatever it might be. Some of the food, the barcode had printed wrong, so a supermarket couldn't sell it. Like there was nothing wrong with the food whatsoever. And you go along as a resident, you just go along and you just say, oh yeah, I'd definitely use pasta and a tomato sauce or whatever it might be. And then they had fresh items at the end, so that included bakery and fruit and veg. And again, just food that a supermarket was going to throw out because it was before it's, there's a difference between best before and use by. So it was out of its best before date, but it was still very much edible. And then they do it pay as you feel. So if you are struggling, or you would be otherwise using a food bank, for example, you are not required to pay at all. But if you are able to give a donation to help the event run or help future events run, then you can do. And that's how it works, basically.
It's like what we were doing at the poverty lunch then. It's the same sort of thing as the poverty lunch when we were doing it at Christmas. Yeah. But we didn't.
The word poverty.
Sarah?
I just wanted to say it's great, brilliant. I couldn't make it, but I listened to what they had to say about it beforehand. I think it's something we need to push, but not as a poverty thing, simply as it's environmentally a good thing, better to get the food out there and have it not end up in a landfill site. That's the positive thing. We should be supporting it.
Yeah, I totally agree. There was a couple of PCSOs actually at the event in February, and they said that they'd spoken to a few people just, in passing, residents in the area, who didn't realise that the event was for them because they sort of thought maybe it was a food bank type thing. But the PCSOs were spreading the message, no, it's for everyone.
There's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of stigma about, well, I don't have to use a food bank, so I'm okay.
Yeah,
but I think, we need to get the message out.
Yeah. Pam?
Say the same things. It needs much better. It's not a food bank, but you can go. Just explain. Nobody understood really how the system worked, and not many people knew that it was happening. So we can help with spreading the right kind of word. We need to get involved in that.
Okay, right then, I'll move to a vote on whether we're going to recommend this to full council. All in favour? Great, thank you. And I'll definitely be in touch with Patrick, who was who I spoke to at the event, to say, all those points that we've just raised about it not just being a poverty associated event. Fab. Okay, moving on to the next grant request, which is from Sculpture by the Sea for their annual festival. We have in the past supported this event, I believe. So their annual festival includes artist-led workshops run in the summer term for the primary schools in the area, which creates flags or displays to use at the festival at Bracelet Bay and Black Hill beaches in July 2021. Last year's event is featured on their website, including our logo. So that's excellent.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So last year, the number of children that took part was 189. And the number of participants in the festival was 120. So over 300 people participated last year, and they're estimating that it'll be the same number this year. The total cost of the project is £3,600, and they are requesting 2,600 from us, with the other 1,000 coming from City and County of Swansea. Are we happy to recommend this to full council?
Yeah, got no problem.
Yeah. Excellent. There wasn't anyone opposing that, was there? No. Okay. Next one is the Newton Athletic application. So this is a new football club in the SA, well, newish. They launched in 2017. They currently have over 200 players. They are requesting 2,500 out of a project that's going to cost £4,000. But what I am struggling to see is what it is for.
Okay.
Steve, can you help me out here? Is it just for equipment?
Sorry, I'll just bring up the document. Bear me a moment.
Does seem to, yeah, I mean, I've called it new club development.
They've sort of said new facilities as far as I can see, but I don't think it's very clear what the facilities are. I don't know, maybe I've read it wrong. I don't know.
I think we might need a little bit more information on this one.
Yeah.
Can we ask Steve to contact them and get more clarification before we commit to anything, Chair?
Yeah, I would be happy with that if
No.
Yeah.
It also doesn't seem to be a time limited grant application either, because it's just for sort of ongoing club development. So I think it would be wise for us to get a bit of a better understanding about what the money will be spent on. Is that all right, Steve?
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you. Okay, budget monitoring for 2020-2021. So the documents are in OneDrive. It's not our year-end document. Paul was at pains to tell me, because of the way that we do need to do our accounting now as a community council. There may well be money that was promised in March but hasn't yet gone out will need to be included. So expect a little bit of shift. But I've already raised the fact that we've got about £18,000 underspend on the small and medium grants. My suggestion was that we use some of that for the lines painting at Court 3, so that we don't need to touch any other dedicated budget. And I think at previous meetings of this committee, we have suggested that any underspend on small and medium grants would be made available in what is now this year's small and medium grants budget as a sort of top up, if you like, and that we do a bit more work to proactively promote that grant scheme so that it is used, because I'm sure that it will be required as part of the COVID recovery. I don't think we need to make a recommendation on it today, but I just wondered whether there were any other thoughts about what we do with that underspend.
how much basketball nets and back. Colin has said on the side about him being able to change over from netball to basketball courts, nets. So we need to look into that, the practicality of doing that and how much it will cost. So there would be a cost to that.
Yeah. Sarah?
Yeah, I'm glad Colin's back here again. I was going to say that perhaps if he wanted to apply for a grant to get a basketball net, to be able to do his reach out to the kids in the area and the ethnic minority kids, we could perhaps look at that, maybe, and also have a basketball net there for the next time they want to play.
Yeah, I will just find the link and post it in the chat. Let's start our advertising now, as it were. Well, I would like to. I'll do that after I finish the meeting, as we're right near the end anyway.
Okay.
I'll post a link to the grants application page in the chat. Pam?
Frozen.
Yeah,
I know.
go back. Can you hear me at all? Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you, Rebecca. I can't hear Pam.
Oh, right.
She's well frozen.
She's, yes.
Got the connection, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. SA1 Solutions fixed her computer today.
Can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay. If you're going to paste, you put a tennis court markings on the tennis court. We've also looked into how you would put up tennis nets, and we found removable tennis nets as well, because you can't have a hole where the tennis nets go in case anybody trips over it. So that would be we need to talk about this.
Yeah, we need more information about what the lines, etc., is going to cost, and then we will have a figure of what's left.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can decide what to do. Okay, right. I'm going to move us on to our last item, which is items for social media and website. As always, I think it's our grant recipients and a bit of information about those. But they have all been covered in our, or a good number have been covered in the newsletter that went out recently. Is there anything else that people want to put forward for social media or website? One thing that will be important to put out there, but we will probably have another meeting of this committee before it happens, is that once the lines of courts 1 and 2 have been painted, we will want to have some sort of grand opening, I'm sure.
Chair, there's one thing on the social media. I spoke to Claire about it, and she's going to draft something up and show you, but it was the consultation on the naming of the court, the individual courts.
Yes, I was rather hoping that Will might have dealt with that.
Well, anyway, I spoke to Claire today. She's going to draw something up to send to you.
Okay.
But that will involve buying some court signs and things like that. And we've already asked SA1 to mock up one.
Okay.
Show to the next committee, you know.
Okay, excellent. That's on the agenda for next time then. Yes, I will also do that when I've just closed the meeting now, Colin. Sarah, did you want to come in on something? You're on mute.
course I am. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, is it too early to sort of put down, if we're thinking of social media, asking the people in Mumbles what they think of basketball court and basketball activities going on during the summer months in Langland, or is that too early?
I think it might be a bit early, partly because I think we need to sort of plan out a consultation, which will probably involve some sort of social media messages. But I'm hoping, this is why I'm so keen to observe the session with Alain next week. I'm hoping that we learn from that how we would go about proper consultation on court 3.
Yeah. I'd just like to see something there for the kids. I mean, the skateboard park was supposed to be built by now. It's not, and the summer's coming and they're going to have a miserable time with no holidays and things. It would be just nice to be able to point them in the direction of something that's free, that's going on, that we've put on for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I take the point. I think it's a shade early, but definitely, you know, keep it in mind. Okay, right. In that case, I think we can probably draw this evening's meeting to a close. If everyone's happy with that. Thank you ever so much for attending, particularly to members of the public who've come to observe. It's always great to have people listening in. I will no doubt see you on Zoom an evening in the near future.
Will you pass on the social media stuff to Colin so that he's got it?
I'll just find the links
Thanks.
now.
Okay, bye.
Do you mind if I ask one quick question? Sorry, my name's Nick. Is it over? Okay, it's not. I don't have a comment. I just want to add a question about what was decided before. So, is it you're going to have lines for basketball, netball, and tennis? Is that what will happen? Okay, cool. I just want to know. Yeah. And also someone mentioned about naming courts. So is that the idea being it's going to be named after someone or in their memory and things like that? So
yeah. So this was agreed by full council a little while ago that we would name the individual courts after people who'd made a contribution to local tennis.
Yeah.
And then we just wanted to basically open that up so that people could throw in their ideas of who's made a contribution in their tennis experience.
Nick, do you have any suggestions?
No, I don't. I don't particularly. I was just wanted to clarify. It's my first time at the meeting. I don't have an opinion either way. I was just wondering. That's all. But yeah, thank you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thank you ever so much, everybody. Don't leave if you want social media links. I'm just going to post them now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oh my goodness, my son has been crying through this entire meeting. I hope my husband